Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to do a very quick introduction of our keynote speaker, Dr. Arun Majumdar, inaugural dean of Stanford School of Sustainability. He is the J. Precourt Provostial Chair Professor at Stanford and a senior fellow and former director of the Precourt Institute of Energy. He served in the Obama administration as the founding director of the Advanced Research Project Agency for Energy, ARPA-E, and as the acting Undersecretary of Energy. He served as a science envoy for the US Department of State and currently serves as the chair of the US Secretary of Energy Advisory Board. Dr. Majumdar was also the vice president of energy at Google and thereby also advises numerous businesses in their energy innovation ecosystem. He's a member of US National Academy of Sciences, US National Academy of Engineers, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He is an IIT alumni from IIT Bombay, did his BS in mechanical engineering. Yes. And did his PhD from Berkeley. With that, Dr. Majumdar, the stage is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the organizers, Prit Banerjee, Arnab, and the whole crew out here for organizing this. This is, I think there's an echo out here. Again, thank you for organizing. This is not easy. Those of you who have done things like this, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes on. I just want to express my gratitude to them. And I want to thank all of you to come here on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. This is, you have passed the JEE again. So let's get started with sustainability. And this is, I call it the defining issue of the 21st century. And this has taken some time to really understand the implications of this. And I just want to start with a historic moment of why now in 2022 is such a historic time. Starting with history, I just want to show you how many people, at the end of the day, this is about humanity. This is the world population. And what you can see out here is that the Earth has never seen anything like this before. It took about 1 million years for the world population, human population, to increase to 1/3 of a billion. And right now, it takes 13 years to add 1 billion. This is a super exponential growth. And the implications of this are profound, not just on humanity, but on the world around us. And the population is expected to grow by 2050. This is, I don't know how many of us will be alive, but our children and grandchildren will be alive. And it's expected to reach 10 billion. And by 2100, surely some of our grandchildren will be around. 11 billion with an uncertainty of 1 billion. Think about it. That's the world that we are entering right now. And this is mostly the population growth has happened with a few bumps out there. Those are due to pandemics in the past, the plague, etc. I call this the human tsunami. The human tsunami. But the implication of human tsunami are, as I said, profound. In addition to the human tsunami, there's a human consumption tsunami. We have pegged the success, we have married the success of companies and nations to a concept called GDP. That concept was introduced right after the Great Depression by an economist from MIT when he was asked by Congress. His name is Simon Kuznets. And he was asked by Congress, can you give us a metric of economic success because we're just coming out of the Depression? So he created the concept of GDP. He got the Nobel Prize in economics. But he also warned, please don't use this as a measure of human welfare. And yet we do that. And it's not just GDP. The GDP per capita has gone up. And if you multiply the GDP per capita with the population, you get a super, super exponential. This is the human consumption. Because when you're producing something, which is GDP, someone is consuming it. That's why you're producing it. So this is the human consumption tsunami. And to fuel and power all this, we need energy to do that. Whether it's computing, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is transportation, we need energy. And I'll give a much narrower view of energy. And this is, I call the energy consumption tsunami. And I'm putting it just from 1850s. The bottom line is the green patch. The lettering out there is the life of Carnot, for those of you who remember Carnot. And I put the arrows out there when I was born in the 1960s. Our children were born in 1990s, our parents and grandparents. In 4 generations, it has completely transformed. And the energy use has come from fossil energy, as we now know. It drives all our economy. And the consequence of that is the carbon dioxide tsunami. And this is a symptom of a problem of that is there's a waste. You can do the same thing for plastics. You can do the same thing for other commodities that we use. Our cell phones, there's a whole waste and electronic waste, and it is the tsunami. So this is the world that we have inherited and we are offering to our children and grandchildren. And this one-way traffic has consequences. And the whole paradigm right now is, can we change this? Can we change the paradigm of the 20th century? Because we did not think at that time of the unintended consequences. And we are living in the world of the unintended consequences of the 20th century. So how do we change it? So before we go there, I want to give you, I'm a professor. I give quizzes. So I don't want to, some of you may remember some of your quizzes from IIT. I don't want to scare you. We have been to a few of them. But here's a pop quiz. 1 degree Celsius is the global average temperature rise since the pre-industrial level. It seems a little low, 1.2, but let's make it a whole number, 1 degree. And people think, oh, what the hell, so what, it's 1 degree. And the 2 degree is the Paris Agreement that happened in 2015. Paris Agreement. Why is it 2 degree and 1 degree? Why did it do that? It's not the global average temperature rise, but it is the consequence of the distribution of temperature. So I just want to show you some data that NASA has gathered on summer temperatures, and here we go. This is the summer temperature. Some summers are hot, which is the red. Some summers are cooler than the average, which is the blue. But look where it's going. And what we're finding are the heat waves are happening more often and more intense. And just so you know, when you take the wet bulb temperature, which is the temperature plus the humidity, if you combine it, there's something called a wet bulb temperature. If the wet bulb temperature exceeds 35 degrees Celsius, humans don't survive. Between 30 and 35, vulnerable populations don't survive. And this year, in India, the heat wave, the wet bulb temperature reached 35 degrees Celsius for a short amount of time. This is a major, major issue. And if you look ahead, this is not going the other way. There's only one direction it's going. So here's the pop quiz now. 1 degree, 2 degree. The next number, I'm going to show you a number and want you to think about it. The next number is 800. This is not 800 degrees Celsius. This is not Venus. Okay. If you are to keep the global average temperature rise below 2 degrees, we have 800 billion tons of CO2 in the budget. This is the global budget of 800 gigatons of CO2. Okay? What does it mean? Well, the next number is 40. This is the amount of emissions per year, 40 gigatons per year. The last number, as you can well imagine, is 20. That's 20 years left. So this decade and the next decade, but in particular this decade, is probably the most consequential decade we have. And people have now felt the urgency of this. Where do the emissions come from? It comes from, obviously, electricity production, and electricity and heat's about 25%. Agriculture is about 24%. Methane from cows, big deal. Methane from rice, big deal. And in industries, cement, steel, petrochemical mostly, and then transportation is only about 14%. People think transportation is big deal. It is a big deal, but not compared to agriculture. So that's the scenario that we have, and we have to change this now. And this is the National Academy's report. IPCC has also predicted, has estimated this. The yellow line on top is business as usual. And the red line on the y-axis, by the way, is the rate of emissions. Okay, I said 40 gigatons per year. This is year. Right at the end is 2100. And so the red line is what the emission rate ought to be if you want to keep it below 2 degrees Celsius. That's the 800 gigatons of budget. And so one has to go reduce the emissions by tens of gigatons per year. And the blue part out there, which is the negative emissions, we have to suck out CO2 from the atmosphere at 10 gigaton per year by the year 2050, 2060 or so. So I'm throwing out these numbers of gigatons and billion tons without really giving you a reference point. So let me give you a reference point. If you add up the total weight of all 8 billion human beings on Earth, and I know some of you are trying to reduce your weight. I understand that. But if you add up all the weight of all human beings, how many gigatons is that? Now, you can use your calculator and quickly figure out, but let me give you the rough number. It's half a gigaton. And we're trying to reduce emissions and suck out CO2 at tens of gigatons per year. This is not trivial things that you do in your home and your hobby. This is bigger than that. And so here's a statement I'm going to make. Whatever 10 billion people consume will produce gigaton scale impact. And what are those? Well, clearly electricity, heating, and cooling, transportation, food, textile, water, steel, cement, information. And this, I know many of you are in the information world. And if you are not paying attention to the energy consumption out there, it's skyrocketing with all the things that we're using. And the biggest challenge for electronics and semiconductors is power, is energy efficiency of computing. We're way away from the theoretical of it, many, many orders of magnitude. So this is the world that we are now going into. So what is the world doing? People have realized this is a major problem. This is a global issue. This is bigger than anything we have faced before, almost like World War II, but this could be bigger. So this is, if you think about it, the world is warming, and we're talking about emissions and energy, but let me just offer you this. And I don't want to scare you too much, but here is, the last time the Earth experienced a comparable concentration of CO2 was 3 to 5 million years ago, when the temperature was 2 to 3 degrees warmer, and the sea level was 10 to 20 meters higher than now. Okay? That could be one of the worlds that our children will inherit. And this is not just an energy issue. Energy, what we do in energy affects water. What we do in water affects agriculture. What we do in agriculture affects biodiversity, ecology. They're all connected. So this is energy, water, food, agriculture, bioecology, global health. The disease vectors are moving north now from the tropical regions. And I don't think the population has faced those disease vectors. COVID has taught us a lot. This is the sustainability that we're talking about, and it is really an existential challenge. So people have realized, COP26, you may have heard in Glasgow, there was a meeting last year, COP26, and countries have made commitments. So China is the biggest emitter today, and they emit about 29 or almost 30% of the CO2. They want to be net zero emissions economy by 2060. They made a commitment. US commitment was 2050. India was a big deal. Modi went out there and made a commitment, 2070. Okay? Then Russia, 2060. Russia, I'm not sure, will now talk to us or others. But nevertheless, Japan, 2050, et cetera. If you ask the question, do we really know how to get to net zero emissions economy by 2050, 2060, 2070? The answer is no. They made the commitment. It's like marriage. You got to make the commitment. Do we have figured out all the debugging of the software? Obviously not. Okay? This is where we are today. No one really knows how to get there. Okay? It's not just nations. So this is the US. US has just passed two major bills. One was the infrastructure bill, which Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in 2021, $1.2 trillion. And just a couple of weeks back, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the climate bill essentially, reformed Build Back Better bill of almost $400 billion. This is the largest investment in infrastructure since President Roosevelt's, FDR's New Deal. And this is major. So US has made the commitment. Do we know how to get there? Not quite sure yet, because there are lots of moving pieces out. The devil is in the details. It's not just nations, corporations. More than 50% of the Fortune 500 companies have made climate commitments, and the aggregate revenue is about $20 trillion. It's more than the US GDP. Okay? And this number is increasing. These corporations create demand. Google, Amazon, et cetera. Rivian essentially is now, the biggest customer is Amazon. Google has created the whole renewable buying alliance, buyers alliance. Okay, so this has created demand just by voluntary corporate commitments. And this number is increasing. The 50% Fortune 500, this is going up. You ask the corporations, do you know how to get there? And the answer is not really. This is an opportunity. If you look at people, the consumer demand, it is at a tipping point. The data on the right is the Google searches on sustainability products. This is not just an exponential increase over time, the last few years, and this is not just US, this is global. Many countries around the world. And these are mostly millennials, Gen Zs, et cetera. So the next generation has got it. They're ahead of us. So I was asked to talk about personal action. What can you do? Let me show you the data. This is on the data, the biggest curve, the biggest line out there is beef. If you eat beef, for every kilogram, you emit 60 kilograms. That's like driving a car for about 100 miles for every kilogram of beef. And then essentially lamb, mutton, cheese. You can look at, if you can reduce your red meat consumption, which is, by the way, good for health, it has major sustainability impact, which is why now you get impossible food and all, which tastes like meat, et cetera. All of that is happening still at a small scale. But if just people take the personal action, we can be really powerful. At the end of the day, it's all about the people and what we do. And if you look at the various countries, the United States has per capita the highest meat consumption. India is way down there. China is going up. Russia is going up. Brazil is going up. So this is one of the personal actions you can take. Textiles, 10% of the global CO2 emissions from textile industry. That's going the wrong way. The data on the right-hand chart is how many times you reuse your clothes before you buy a new one, before you throw it away. And it goes in the landfill, and this is cellulose, and gets degraded, and methane goes up, CO2 goes up. Okay? The lowest out there, the gray line, is the United States. Okay, that is, we throw away the least number of times we use a piece of clothing is the United States. And the green line is China. It's trying to emulate United States, which is the wrong direction. So if you can just reuse your clothes a little more often, yes, I have T-shirts, I don't know how many years old, I still use them, And I still buy new clothes, which I think we should be reducing. Capital investments. Many of you are in businesses, in billion-dollar businesses. The International Energy Agency has estimated that if you really want to change the economy and get to your net zero commitments for nations, how much investment is needed? The investment that is needed is $4 trillion per year for the next 30 years. Order of magnitude, $100 trillion will be invested. This is one of the biggest opportunities you can ever imagine. And what are the technologies? How do we get there? What are the companies? What are the technologies? Not quite sure. So think of this as the internet in the 1980s. The internet really has not yet happened. And that's the opportunity. That's where we are right now, early 90s. What are the positive news? So I've talked about all the scary stuff. Positive news, there's some amazing thing. The first time in the history of humanity, we have renewable energy, wind and solar, to be the cheapest way to produce electricity anywhere in the world, at scale, at the gigawatt hour, terawatt hour scale. This is the first time. This is amazing, except for the fact that our electricity grid was never designed for fluctuating generation. You need information technology to coordinate the generation fluctuation and the demand fluctuation. That coordination has not yet happened. I know Microsoft is, and others are getting into it. The last one is obvious for you, is the EV revolution. The cost of batteries come down dramatically, even faster than solar and wind. And that has come down to the point that in the next couple of years, the battery cost will be at a point where an electric vehicle is going to be competitive in range and cost with a gasoline car without a subsidy. This is a big deal. This is a tectonic shift in the automotive industry. And now they have to have electricity, except for the fact for the last 100 years, the automotive industry has never talked to the electricity industry. They were talking to the oil and gas industry. So that interfacing, all the protocols and all, are still being developed right now. This is a big deal. The regulatory framework of the electricity industry is completely different from that of the automotive industry. Okay? So this is a tectonic shift that is going on, and we're living through that. And of course, Bay Area, we don't have to explain this. In other areas, you do have to explain this. Okay, we need much more. This is not enough. If you think that you can address climate change with solar, wind, and batteries, it's far from the truth. There is, grid-scale storage is needed. I won't go into the details. Small modular nuclear plants. Refrigerants. Refrigerants that are used in air conditioning refrigerators have a global warming potential of 3,000 times that of CO2. So if there's any leakage, and we know refrigerants leak, we have a problem, a real problem. There are many other things. Industry, steel, the way that we use blast furnace to make steel with using natural gas or coal, that has to change. And the steel industry is hugely interested in that. ArcelorMittal and all are going deeply into this. Food and agriculture, and a major effort to suck out CO2 from the atmosphere. We really don't know how to do that cost effectively in a chemical way, but plants do that. But the question is, how do we actually do it at a rate of 40 gigatons or tens of gigatons per year? We still don't know how to do that yet. So given all of this, and I'll say a little bit about Stanford. Stanford has been around for about 120, 140 years or so. And the schools, the School of Education, School of Law, School of Medicine, Engineering, School of Business, Humanities, and all, they all were formed before 1948. So for the last 74 years, we haven't created a school, because we didn't feel the topic was important enough. So after 74 years, we launched this year the Doerr School, the Stanford Doerr School of Sustainability, named after John and Ann Doerr, and we are blessed to have their gift of the largest gift Stanford has ever received, $1.1 billion, and you have, yes, we should really thank John and Ann, because they're really focusing on this. John thinks this is the new computer science, and I had the occasion of a fireside chat with him, and I asked to push him a little bit, isn't this bigger than computer science? He actually agreed. Okay, so this is where we are. And it is not just on John and Ann, there's Jerry Yang and Jerry and Akiko, and many others, David and Angela Philo, others have. The total is about 1.7 billion, and frankly, there are others lining up as well. And this is amazing, what is happening. And we hope it's not, again, we are an institution, we are blessed with this, but this cannot be solved by a single university or any organization in the world. We are hoping organizations around the world, not just in the United States, in India, Africa, in Europe, and others in Asia, they all receive these kinds of things because we collectively need to do this. There is no single organization that can, and our job is to really engage and partner. So let me tell you what we're doing. I won't go into too much details. This is our goal, is to reimagine academia. Academia is nicely put into business school, engineering school, medicine school, et cetera. But the sustainability transcends all of them, cross-cuts all of them. So how do we educate the next generation of students? How do we educate corporates? How do you make decision-making in the complexity that we have? And this is something that is part of Reimagining Academia. I'll be very brief about this. We've got, obviously, departments, and we've got a nice little globe animation and all of that. One of the things that we are doing is to create something called the Accelerator. Think about Hewlett and Packard, goes back to the 1940s, Hewlett and Packard and Fred Terman, who was the Dean of Engineering, creating a Stanford Park and launching what is now we call the Silicon Valley. It's really a spin-off, right? That needs to be on steroids now, but not just locally, but for the world. And the Accelerator is like the hospital for sustainability, because there are some sick patients around, except as opposed to our hospital at Stanford, the patients are not coming here to get cured. We have to go out there and understand what the issues really are. So this is really the sustainability accelerator, and there are a few principles. We got to think global. We got to think scale, and we got to think speed, because there's an urgency to this. And we are forming this global network of organizations, not just in the United States, this is worldwide, of our partners. We need to get educated what the real issues are going on around the world, including in India. So we are forming that, because sitting here in Silicon Valley, we'll never understand the full complexity of what is really going on. And we need to co-create solutions. This is not someone in Stanford doing something and throwing it over there and said, okay, now you take it and scale it. No, we have to co-create, and then we have to implement. And so this is training. The idea of scale is not what academia normally does. Industry does that. But we got to adopt that approach of reimagining academia to address the scale and the complexity that engineering, science, law, business, health are all intersecting out here. That complexity cannot be diluted. It's like chemistry is not physics. Biology is not chemistry. As you go into levels of hierarchy, complexity appears, and we need to address that at the scale of the complexity. So let me just end, and happy to have a little discussion on this. You know, I love this quote. This is not my quote, I just borrowed it. We do not inherit this earth from our ancestors. That's a wrong way of thinking about it. We borrow it from our children. And we owe it to our children and grandchildren to really address this at scale and speed and the complexity that we are entering right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Majumdar. I have a few questions.
Sure.
Let's move to the center.
Do you want to sit or?
Let's do center.
Yeah. This is a stand-up act.
So this is a heavy-duty topic. And the questions that I was thinking is trying to summarize a few things that was there. But first question is this, and I want you to be blunt and honest. Do we have hope, or we are done?
We absolutely have hope.
Hope, okay.
And the hope really depends on people.
So that's my next question. For an average Joe like me, other than not buying new clothes, not eating red meat, tomorrow I wake up, any of us, what we think about, what we take away from here?
Well, I think there's not a single thing.
I know, that's why,
So, yes, we can take some personal responsibility in changing a lifestyle, et cetera. But this needs to be at billion people scale. And many of you are in the tech sector, and you can use social media to reach millions of people. Maybe that's the platform to use to really introduce this change. That's on the personal side. But you still have to, you're still relying on an infrastructure that has been there for roughly 100 years. Oil, gas, electricity, we're not going to throw away that infrastructure.
That's right.
So personal choices do matter, but changing the infrastructure, changing how those services are delivered also really, really mattered. So it's demand side and supply side and the infrastructure. Now, how do you change that part is public policy.
That's my next question.
Okay.
So,
We didn't prepare for this that well.
God, we should have discussed. So, no, what I hear is any meaningful corrective actions are like giga scale, humongous, scale it has to happen. So it's really, so is it up to the government to really drive this, or corporates, or these are $1 billion investment thing? Why would someone do it? What's the ROI?
In that multiple choice, there's
Yes.
the bottom one, all of the above.
All of the above.
That's the all of the above. It is absolutely government choice.
That's
As I
correct.
said, the US government is moving. Other governments are saying they're not exactly sure how to get there.
Yeah.
And this is where we need some education on this to how to get there, right? If you look at Scope 1 emission. Scope 1 emission is I'm driving a car with gasoline, I emit. That's called direct emission. That's Scope 1 emission. Scope 2 emissions, I'm buying electricity. The electricity doesn't have CO2 emissions, but it's being produced, so it's someone else's Scope 2 emission. Scope 3 emissions
Yes.
is that I just drank that glass of the bottle of water.
Right.
That embedded CO2 in there, that's Scope 3. How do I calculate that? I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah.
No one knows. So you need a supply chain understanding. Supply chain are in the news, but looking at the supply chain and the knowledge graph of where things came from and what are the CO2 implications, that's Scope 3 emissions, and no one knows really how to get there. Okay, so this is an opportunity for, I know many of you are data scientists, this is an opportunity to figure out how to create that knowledge graph to be able to figure out Scope 3 emissions, because if you really want to get to net zero emissions economy,
Right.
whether it is a corporations, I'm so glad that Fortune 500 companies, more than half of them, and now that number is increasing, that's a corporate action. You ask them how you get there, they don't know how to do it, because they don't know how to do Scope 3 emissions.
Okay.
And Scope 3 emissions is a symptom of a larger issue of interconnection. Interconnection, energy, water, food, which is why we're calling it sustainability. So yes, government action, corporate action, personal action.
You probably have already answered my last question. This is Silicon Valley, Bay Area. There are lots of opportunity-seeking entrepreneurs. Is there anything for them?
As I said,
Is it
I mean,
a
I didn't
problem
have to
statement or an opportunity?
I didn't say that statement. John Doerr is saying this. This is the new computer science, and I pushed him, and he's saying, this is bigger than computer science.
There you go.
And so, yes, if you want the education, come to Stanford or go to other places. I hope this happens in many other places. I know others, Columbia University, Arizona State, and others are now looking at this. I mean, the global response to this, when the announcement happened, was absolutely remarkable. They said, how can we engage? We need to do this. They're all rooting for our success, but they said, we need to do it as well. So this is a global movement that needs to happen for education, for how do you get the humanity to go in this direction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.